This morning I'm playing with the Viviva colors. These are the color sheets, and Viviva sent these to me to try out and see how I like them, and to just let them know what I feel about their product. They also sent this really good water brush. I've used a lot of different water brushes, and this is one of the best I've used. It holds a really nice point. I can get into some fine areas, as I'll show you. They also sent me a beautiful sketchbook that I'm anxious to try. The paper seems great quality. This was a little test I ran of the Viviva colors. And there's a pocket in the back, which I like a lot. This morning, I'm working in a sketchbook I made myself. This is from a Fly London box, and it's Coptic bound. This is part of the 100-day project that I've committed to. I'm going to do 100 days of painting black walnut husks in different ways and then posting them. It's part of a project that's gone on for several years. It's a great project. And my aim is to play with different materials. I've been using different ink brush pens, different inks, watercolor techniques, crayons, and things I haven't used for a long time. Because I'm testing these out, I've been playing with the Viviva color sheets, which I'm quite delighted with. I'm surprised at how much they handle, just like watercolor. And the reason I'm surprised is that I have played with color sheets before, and I did not find them to work quite as well. Color sheets that I played with, they were not the Viviva, they were another brand, and the colors were so intense. They were electric. I couldn't work them the way I do watercolor, which was fine. They were very fun. I did wonderful airport sketches with them because they were quick, they were handy. Anyway, this is what I'm doing today. I started filling this in already. I wasn't sure I was going to film this and then decided to film it. So I'm going to go ahead. You'll see how these color sheets work. And I do have to say, I'm not crazy about this paper. This is Richardson student grade watercolor paper, and I haven't been too fond of it. But for some reason, the Viviva color sheets are working beautifully on it. I may actually make more sketchbooks out of it. These little books have kind of a waxed, maybe it's glassine, a waxed paper between the colors so that they don't mix with each other while they're wet. And you'll see, I don't know if you can see it on this, but this looks very green, but it says violet, okay? And here it gives a clue as to what the colors really will look like, because the pigments that are somehow applied onto the paper are super intense, and they just simply don't look like their color. But this green is this purple. So you really do have to look at this or make yourself a little chart, which I will do eventually. In each of these packages, there are 16 colors. Now, the water brush works by just squeezing a little bit to make it wet. Whenever I use these, I use my sock, my wrist sock. I just take a sock and chop off the top of it, and then I can use it to clean off my water brush so that I'm also not mixing colors on my sheets when I don't want to. I'm going to go ahead and paint these in magenta. And see, this is magenta. See, it looks brown, doesn't it? Okay, but watch. There's the color. See, this water brush holds its point, which many of the other water brushes I've used in the past don't hold a point like this. I can work in very small areas with this. For these, I used the burnt sienna, the burnt umber, and I used the violet, okay? And I used them straight from here and allowed them to mix on the paper. That's the way that I like to use them. Sometimes I'll mix them on another sheet, but if I'm using these traveling, I'm not carrying a palette unless I'm using one of my tiny little kits like my mini Altoid, and that works as my palette. Here I can mix a little bit on the side. I just don't do that ordinarily. So I've chosen, in looking at this, I'm using these colors straight, which is a good practice for me. Just, okay, what can I make work in terms of a color scheme? So I'm going to use these two greens with these colors so that I have warm colors, which are my browns, and my greens actually are a warm green. And then I have my cooler colors, which are violet and a cool red, even though they're on the warmer side of the circular color wheel. That's a little bit more complicated than I wanted to explain, but I want to mention it for those of you who have taken my color courses. You'll know what I'm talking about. They go on so nicely on this paper. I'm really shocked. Not because of the watercolor, but because I have not had fun working on this paper with any medium. And this is actually fun. So thank you, Viviva. Okay, now I like that bleed. You can see how quickly these will bleed in. I mean, they're a little different from regular watercolors in that way. If I don't want it to bleed quite so much, I would just lift it. I like a little bit of the bleed. I didn't like quite as much as it did. And creating a puddle using the color sheets is a little different too. It's different from having a little palette and a puddle actually on my palette. I'm having to create and keep the puddle right on my paper. I'm always happy when I can get back to a company and tell them that I like their product. And I'm liking the Viviva color sheets very much. I'm playing with my values here, my grayscale values, the lights and the darks. You know, most water brushes I've used would never cooperate like this. This holds a point so nicely. I'll have to see if they sell their brushes separately, because I would highly recommend them. It's almost worth buying the whole kit. I mean, the paints are nice too. To have a water brush that works really well is fantastic. So I painted very loosely inside the husks, but this outside where I've drawn the detail of the frame much more tightly, I'm not being as loose. In fact, I'm not being loose at all. All right, just for fun, I do want to show you some looseness while I'm doing this, because this is all going to just be really tight and not that much fun to watch. So back here where I first tested one of the reds and one of the blues of the Viviva watercolor sheets, I did it in the sketchbook that they sent me. And I will do a quick drawing of the husk, just like I did in these. And then I threw in some shadow. Let's see. Okay, so there's a husk. I didn't use the water brush when I did these. I used a regular paintbrush. And so I'll do the same thing again. You can do it with a water brush, and I'll try that a little bit later. So I wet it. I used both colors to get some variety. I still used my sock. Look at how beautiful that is. And then I went to the violet. See, and you can just flip it like this because the wax will protect the color. And I went back to, I cleaned it off, went back to the brown. And a little bit of that. I don't mind if that mixes because they're just so much the same. Okay. So that's how you can handle these nice and loosely too. I'm going to go back to this one and I'll show you the end result. Another good aspect of these Viviva color sheets is that they do glaze over one another beautifully. You can see the layer shining through, and I like that. This was a very successful trial with the Viviva colors. I have a lot of great things to say about these, and I'll go into more depth in another video. Thank you for watching. I'm Chris Carter. Check out my online courses at chriscarterart.com. I teach both on Skillshare and on my own website. Have a great day. Happy sketching.